Hi, my name's Aaron Visser. I'm a tech and dreamer at the School of Computing, and I have basically a vision for the school um, and sort of the kind of next generation growth of it. And I have a couple projects, and so let me just share my vision and we can sort of pick out the most applicable projects. So the idea is that we employ the same contractors that did that expansion on the old gym, and we do that on Goodwin Hall. I have the contact of the person who does the cement work, and so we'll talk with them. And then we take Goodwin Hall and we basically build a biodome up to the 10th floor, out to the sidewalk, and across the parking lot. The parking lot is already rated for an expansion, and we just basically mining builds down, um, sort of so any in the end what ends up happening is there's essentially a biodome that's a story south and three more stories up and across, and then we can use the parking lot and maintain parking, and we build like living roofs on the ILC and stuff. Anyway, that's the huge expansion, but the um, sort of easy vision is that we build a mezzanine out to the sidewalk with the same construction, hold our classes and stuff exactly how they build it out, um, and then cover the whole thing with transparent solar panels, and then we could charge the department. But anyway, so the idea is, so one of the first projects is, I think the Goodwin elevator should be turned into a freight elevator, and we make essentially one of those mall elevators, glass elevator here, because each of these panels swings open, and so they're basically doors for the elevator. Um, and we have enough failure and enough growth, and since we never built an elevator in Walter Light, or the elevator shaft is a double shaft and we just replace the elevator. So then the next thing is that we have a unisex washroom down here, and I'd like to sort of build it more like the showers in Dupuis, right? So it's a unisex shower. So with your secure fob, you come in here, the double doors automatically open for accessibility. Right now they're totally manual. And then we essentially take this accessible stall, make it actually accessible, not breaking the toilet, put a shower in here and a stall. Like, right, you need a single change stall and a single shower stall. And you just make it, even that it's only one person at a time, but it could definitely be unisex because it already is. And then elevator like normal. But you notice that the elevator is a 4K skin, right? So it kind of looks like a holodeck, right? So if all these surfaces were 4K wallpaper, that might be your first indication that something interesting is happening. There would be sounds on these doors so that they could sound like any kind of thing you want: a creaking door, a Star Trek holodeck door, um, Star Wars storm door. The doors open, and you might need to have some doggy bags, because all you see is your doors open and it's Hobbiton, or it's inside the like a Star Destroyer or whatever, or this is a cross section of whatever, because every single surface is either covered in reflective paint with a laser projector here, so it's projecting on the walls, or they're just 4K screens. It'll cost about $30,000 to $40,000 to completely make this room into a holodeck. Even the floors, right? 4K on the floors. You would probably stop the 4K thing at about this height, which is fine because you need some sense of reality. These doors are going to be sliding glass doors. So, like, we extract at the metal, make a single pane of architectural glass, and it slides to the side. So of course, since we're using like room body tracking, that door will have already opened by the time I approach it. But you won't see the door because you'll see like a Death Star blast door opening or being closed. And then as you approach it, the door doesn't swing open. The door has already been opened, so you just walk into here. It will be very disconcerting. So what we're doing is we're improving Goodwin Hall a step at a time. So the two projects this year are, one, Cyril, there will be a robot where the plant is, or the robot is the plant, whatever. We'll have a robot in here that can move around the room and interacts with guests. And really what it is that the main thing is that we have probably like a Logitech Brio camera or just a basic 3D camera like a Z Mini. And we do face recognition on the visitor. And then we just do a Google image search of that, or we just do image recognition on that person, and we find out what they're kind of doing in their area of research or sort of like things in their life. And we either just show them the Google results, or we have the robot in a customizable robot voice. It can even sound like C3PO. Ask them like, something about their, like the question. So ask them a question about a thing that you Google about them. It will be very disconcerting, but it'll be very awesome. And then the other project is we're going to spend as much money as we can allocate in the budget and buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the OLED wallpaper screens. And the most ideal is actually get just one screen from LG. Get LG to make a screen that's whatever, 6'10", as tall as this door is. So I'm 6 feet, my arm's 3 feet. It's kind of like a cubit. I don't know. 9 feet, 9-foot tall screen. Because honestly, it would be much easier if one computer can do one wall. I can do HDMI splitting, but anyway, so the project, which is reasonable, is just get 10 screens. They're about $3,400 a screen. Get the carpenter team to mount out a bracket, a little bit away from the wall. The great thing is that it's cinder block. And one of the goals of the project is we don't want to actually make too much noise. So let's spend a day building the VESA mount frames and be done with it. One of the things is that if the budget allows, I would like all the walls to be done like that. And this budget has to include the painting, right? So the project is the wall, but the infrastructure to support the wall. So we're picking out colors. We're assisting Aaron here in terms of like Aaron is leading the entire sort of how it looks, and the other Aaron is leading the tech. So we have the one project, which is the robot, which basically shows the open source nature of the person's image. And then that robot will, of course, it has to be on a Roomba, and the primary mode of interacting with the robot is either with the screen or and also in VR, right? If you're in VR, then you look through the robot's eyes. Um, and yeah, and so the way this room will, and then the desk is where the desk is, but then the project will, if budget allows, the entire desk will have those panels, right? One panel, two panel. If you could get LG to print entire pieces, that would be the best, right? Because they're flexible screens, right? So you get like a piece of stuff, bend it, lay the screen out, glue it down. But that's too much for year one. So the year one idea is in this wall. It also has to have those like touch sensors. So like what they did in the HML. So the expertise of the HML will be crucial to that. And part of how this would work is if we put that kind of glass that the HML has, or blinds. So another project, because it'll be part of making those screens work good, is just automated blinds, individually controlled through an app, or just like toggle switches. It doesn't matter, right? And if you control a lot of this stuff with like a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino, you can, right? You can get things. So the computing power you need is essentially that it can do 4K and have sort of cell phone level touch interaction. And then we're going to have room sense in here, right? So the robot and the screen work with room sense, because to make the holographic effect work, you have to, what's the word? You have to distort the perspective, right? So it may not work in a group, but at least if an area, if like one of the screens could distort for the person, right? Because the room sense and eye tracking is seeing where the people are looking. So if you were a person over there and you're looking at me, this image will be distorted to you, but to me it would be clear. So as I approach these panels, like my view of the wall has to change, right? So it's not virtual reality, it's not augmented reality, it's real reality, right? It is what we're seeing. Everything in here will have a little Roomba kind of robot. It can reorient the room. It will be very disconcerting. If this whole thing was a holodeck, it'll be very disconcerting. So don't worry about that. The project is we're going to do as much as we can with the walls that we can. There will be repainting, so this will be a dark navy. The walls are going to be dark gray with down LED lighting. So the down lighting could be how the touch interface works, right? So don't think you have to go small, right? The whole thing is that every surface will be touch sensitive, right? If we wanted to, if this was an entire 4K panel, this wouldn't look like Aaron's desk. It could, but it could also look like a Star Trek Enterprise like D kind of tabletop, right? If everything is touch sensitive and everything is 4K, it would look like anything, right? So there wouldn't, there could have this actual physical paper, but it could also be digital paper, because it would be very difficult for you to not know, right? If everything in here, if that thing was just a 4K panel and I was at this distance as a human, and there was like head tracking like that, I don't know the guy's name, but it's like Jason Lee. I might have gotten his name wrong, but he does tracking with the Wiimote and these objects. And if you do room tracking and you distort the image, you can't tell as a human. But then as you approach, because I will have no idea how far the wall is, so I could bring up a digital version of the screen in 4K, and I could be like a meter away, and even if I wasn't wearing haptic gloves, I would just grab it and it would like digitally recreate itself in that 4K screen. It would be open, so it would be like floating there in the air. And if you had haptic gloves, then you would actually feel it as well. So the idea is that we have a sort of a cool big data security project with the robot, and we have a very easy tech solution with the screens and sensitive. This is expensive in terms of the technology. It's already there, right? It could even be on something like this, right? So the walls could move and stuff. But I think the best is that these screens are $3,500, and they're like uh, so that's for a fixed size, 3,500. They're about like 15,000 to 30,000 for the ones that have the display control separate. I would advise that. I would really go and talk to LG and get them to make you custom screens. It will cost more, but LG is ready to do it, and we already have a relationship with LG, right? And yeah, so because the crazy thing is that if this all of these walls were either completely reflective with a 360 laser projector on the ceiling, like you won't know that there was a desk there or not. So and like the floors too, right? So if the budget allows, when we redo the floors, we put 4K wallpaper sheets because they're like thinner than a piece of paper on the floor, and then put just a clear coat underneath. Like this could look like a path, right? No one would do it because but like the cost of organic sheets of like sort of imagine paper rolls, rolls of paper in the pulp and paper industry, but it's like what's the word I'm looking for? So they make screens of this organic material, and it's about 10 microns thick. And so now they can roll them, and if you have a good enough layer of glue, then the layers don't separate. And so they can make these sheets really cheap, and you just cut them. And then the great thing is you can make wallpapers out of them. Like this whole thing, right? Because if this wasn't a door, it was a pane of glass, then you would have just wallpapered it. Like the thing is it doesn't even have to be glass, right? Because the glass is the screen, right? So our cost is essentially to coat 9 foot high with glass, and we build it out a foot, right? So we build it out to the bulkhead, so the when the carpenters have this much to work with, right? This is a good I don't know. They put a 2x4 or 2x6 out here, right? And then the screen is a nice layer, and then you could have a physical touch, and you could have IR touch, and then you could even have a pane of glass, a thick architectural glass in front of it, right? All of those things are very cheap. The robot is going to be interesting because what I would advise is that it's a Logitech Brio camera as well as a Z Mini, and the Brio can use Windows Hello to sort of authenticate, and so it can unlock rooms, right? So the project isn't the robot part of it is almost like that on a Roomba, and then you use the Zed's Mini kind of like spatial orientation with like a Jetson, right? So a Jetson is free for academic stuff. Everyone has a Roomba, or you just make a Roomba, and the camera, and you use a set of Jetson, and then you have the camera. A Z Mini is $500, and a Brio is $250. And so then think about this for a second. So right, you're talking maybe about $1,000 in parts for the robot, and then all it is that image recognition on the person's camera. Even you could, and then you query the standard things, right? Facebook, Google Images, your own internal database, right? The internal, and it really is big data, but it's like the task is big data quickly, right? You don't need to store this information, so the memory of the knowledge is not kept, right? It's used, and you want to have questions about the person before they even enter in this, right? So the robot, like, because the robot can tap into the cameras, right? You have like 5 interfaces up in the corners, and then the corners are doing room sense, and then they're tracking the person. You could have Vicon in here, but the problem with Vicon is you need reflective paint, and it's really not necessary, so a Vive does it just well. And you do whatever that stuff is with the augmented reality that it knows per the user where they are to the wall, right? So if this was a holodeck, I would show this brick wall image a foot out. And then as you get closer to it, it makes that cool effect. Anyway, so those are the 2 projects. I'll probably get it transcribed.